You ever notice how so many paranormal TV shows kind of feel the same? It's not just about the flickering lights and the spooky noises. There's actually a really powerful, repeatable storytelling formula going on. It's a formula that turns someone's personal terror into primetime TV. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and break that formula down using the hit series My Ghost Story as our guide. See, it always starts with a moment of pure, raw fear. Just imagine this. You're in a new place, you're all alone, and suddenly you wake up, but you can't move. You're gasping for air, and you feel this crushing weight on your chest. That's not a line from a horror movie, that's a direct quote from someone's real experience. And that kind of terrifying, personal story, that's the foundation these shows are built on. Now, what's so fascinating is that this horrifying experience, it actually has a name. It's a real medical thing called sleep paralysis. In fact, in the story this came from, a doctor just brushes it off as old hag syndrome. But by taking this very real, very physiological event and framing it as a supernatural attack, the show immediately starts to blur that line between what's real and what we're afraid of. So how in the world do you take an intensely personal, maybe even inexplainable experience like that and turn it into a TV show that people can't stop watching? Well, that is where the formula comes in, and we're about to deconstruct it by looking at the series that pretty much perfected the whole thing. The whole premise is brilliant because it's just so simple. There are no celebrity hosts, no ghost hunting team with a bunch of fancy gadgets. Nope, the entire show is built on regular people sitting in a chair telling their story. The message is just, this happened to me. And that direct-to-camera style, it creates this instant feeling of intimacy, of authenticity. And it all follows this super tight three-step playbook. Every single story has this rhythm. First, you get the emotional, first-hand account. Then, they bring it to life with these moody, dramatic reenactments. Shadowy figures, slamming doors, actors looking terrified. And finally, you get the climax. They present these grainy photos or distorted audio clips or blurry videos as the so-called proof. It's a perfect 1-2-3 punch of story, drama, and evidence. And this, right here, this is basically their mission statement. The show literally opens with this warning. On one hand, it's a disclaimer, but really, it's a promise. It's telling you, the viewer, hey, suspend your disbelief because what you're about to see is real, and it's going to be creepy. It just perfectly sets the stage before a single story even starts. Okay, so that's the format of this show, but what about the stories themselves? Well, if you binge watch enough episodes, and, I did, you start to notice that the hauntings themselves follow a pretty clear pattern. Certain themes, certain types of ghosts, they pop up again and again and again. Turns out, these true stories rely on a surprisingly consistent set of horror movie tropes. You've always got the vengeful female spirit, right? The woman who was wronged in life and is now out for revenge. Then there's the cursed object that brings the haunting with it. The shocking discovery of a past tragedy that explains everything. The dream house that's secretly a nightmare. And, my personal favorite, the skeptic friend or partner who doesn't believe a word of it until they have their own terrifying encounter. Let's just look at two quick examples of that vengeful female spirit. In one story, a pregnant woman is being tormented by a ghost, and they later find out the ghost had lost several babies in that very house. In another, a couple keeps getting sick, only to discover the previous owner was a woman who was poisoning her own kids for attention. See? Two totally different stories, but the same core idea. A woman whose tragic, twisted motherhood has left a painful scar on the property. And when it comes to the cursed object, things can get really weird. I mean, check this out. This is from one of the show's most bizarre stories. A woman realizes her home pregnancy tests are only positive when she's wearing this vintage engagement ring she just bought. She takes the ring off, the tests are negative. Puts it back on, positive again. It's such a wild narrative hook, and it ties the whole haunting to one single physical thing. And this is where you get that big aha moment, the mystery-solving part. The haunting feels chaotic and random until, suddenly, the homeowners find that crucial clue. They dig up a hidden grave in the backyard, or they find an old scrapbook that details the last owner's terrible crimes. Now, finding this stuff doesn't usually stop the haunting, but it gives a satisfying supernatural reason for why it's all happening. So, did this formula work? Oh, you better believe it worked. The numbers really do speak for themselves. This show wasn't just some flash in the pan. It became a long-running, really successful piece of television. The show kicked off in 2010 and had a solid run for several years. What's really interesting is that in 2012, they rebranded it as My Ghost Story Caught on Camera. And that was such a smart move because it doubled down on the one thing viewers wanted most, that promise of seeing real, tangible evidence, no matter how shaky or blurry it was. So how long did it last? 6 full seasons. I mean, in the world of reality TV, that is an incredibly successful run. It proves that the formula wasn't just interesting, it was sustainable. And across those 6 seasons, they pumped out, get this, 75 episodes. That's hundreds and hundreds of individual stories, all created by this incredibly efficient storytelling machine. And you know what? The show's influence didn't even stop in 2013. Its legacy is still going strong in syndication. You can still catch reruns on networks like FYI and the Travel Channel. It just goes to show you that a good ghost story, especially one told with the right formula, never really dies. It just keeps haunting the airwaves. So this all brings us to the biggest question of all. Why? Why do we watch this stuff? What is it about this specific formula that connects with us so deeply year after year? At the end of the day, I think this is it. The world is full of things that go bump in the night, right? The creaks in the floorboards, that weird dream you had, the feeling that you're being watched. Those are chaotic, unsettling fears without any explanation. What this formula does is it takes all that chaos and it gives it a structure. It packages it into a story we can follow, it gives the ghost a name, it gives it a motive, and it turns that formless anxiety into something we can actually understand. So I'm going to leave you with this question to chew on. When we watch these shows, are we seeing documented proof of the paranormal? Or are we just witnessing the birth of a new kind of modern folklore? One that's been perfectly engineered for television? You know, maybe the distinction doesn't even matter. Because whether it's a real ghost or a campfire tale, the formula works for the exact same reason. It taps into our deep human need to find patterns in the chaos and to tell a really good story about the dark.